You are watching the 7th video lesson in a series made for the English home language students in the IEB curriculum who have selected film study as their elective for the 4th genre. This video lesson will give you some background information on sound design in films. We are so used to the multi-sensory experience of watching films that we forget that the first movies were watched in silence. In order to enhance the experience of movie watchers, these silent movies were often screened with live musical accompaniment. You would sit in your seat in the audience watching the movie, while a live orchestra played music and provided sound effects in time with the events on the screen. If you lived in a smaller town, the accompaniment would be provided by a single pianist who would have been given the sheet music for the film. And if there was no musician available, you'd have to make do with the subtitles on the screen and imagine the noises for yourself. Not only would you have to imagine the noises, you'd have to imagine the dialogue as well. Sound, voice, and music are very important parts of most films. From the beginning of movie making, directors tried to incorporate sound. Here's a picture of a very early sound recording in progress in the 1890s, showing the use of a cylindrical phonograph. You can watch this 15-second clip on YouTube by searching for the Dixon experimental sound film. Sound enhances the imaginary world. It can provide depth, establish character and environment, introduce a new scene, or cue the viewer to important information. The sound that we hear in a movie is a complex bringing together of various elements of noise. It's the sound of actors' voices, combined with the wind in the trees and the music that accompanies that scene. This slide is a photograph of one of Hollywood's best sound engineers, Walter Murch. This picture shows him at the sound editing console while designing the sound for the Oscar award-winning 1979 film Apocalypse Now. His work on Apocalypse Now is still regarded as the gold standard of sound design. It was only the second movie ever to use the Dolby stereo system. It has been fully restored and digitally remastered. I highly recommend that you watch it. Walter Murch is the only person in history to win Oscars for both sound design and film editing for the same movie. And this was for the epic film, The English Patient. I must admit that this is one of the few times when I've thought that a movie was better than the book on which it was based. Let's explore the world of Walter Murch and other sound designers. We start with the word diegesis. It's a word that describes the world experienced by the characters in a narrative. In movies, we have diegetic sound and non-diegetic sound. Diegetic sound is any sound that the character or characters on screen can hear. For example, the sound of one character talking to another would be diegetic. In the movie Say Anything, all of the characters can hear the sound from this boombox. Non-diegetic sound is any sound that the audience can hear, but the characters on screen cannot. Any appearance of background music is a prime example of non-diegetic sound. In the iconic shower scene from the movie Psycho, the victim in the shower cannot hear the suspenseful music score that plays. Only we, the audience, can hear that. Direct sound is all of the sound that is recorded at the time of filming. Using direct sound places emphasis on the character's dialogue and creates a more realistic, believable ambience or atmosphere. The still here is from one of the French New Wave films. It's called Breathless, and it predominantly uses direct sound. Non-simultaneous sound is essentially sound that takes place earlier or later in the story than the current image we are seeing. This type of sound can give us information about the story without us actually seeing these events taking place. This still is from the film Fight Club, in which voiceover has been used. This is one example of non-simultaneous sound. Synchronous sound is sound that is matched with the action and movements being viewed. For example, a character is playing the piano, and the viewer hears the sounds of the piano simultaneously. The photograph on this slide shows a scene being filmed with the use of various microphones. While body mics are used to record these actors' dialogue, the boom mic will pick up other synchronous sounds that will be mixed in. Post-synchronization dubbing describes the process of adding sound to a scene after it has been filmed. For example, explosion sounds and music. Now, since lightsabers aren't real, their zhoo, zhoo sounds must be added in post-production. Off-screen sound describes sound assumed to be in the space of a scene yet remaining off-screen while the action takes place simultaneously. The character hears something, but we can't see what it is yet. In this still, it looks like it's to the right of the frame somewhere. Sound perspective refers to the apparent distance of a sound source, evidenced by its volume, timbre, and pitch. This type of sound editing is most common in how the audience hears film characters' speech. While the scene may cut from a long shot of a conversation to a medium shot of the two characters to close-up shots or reverse shot pairing, the soundtrack does not usually reproduce these relative distances and the change in volume that would naturally occur. Actors in these situations are mic'd so that the volume of their voices remains constant and audible to the audience. Sound perspective can also give us clues as to who is present in a scene, where they are, and their relative importance to the film's narrative. If the sound of the oncoming hoofbeats is getting louder and more distinct, the sound editor is making use of sound perspective, as would be the case in this scene, Approaching Horses, from the movie Troy. A soundbridge is a type of sound editing that occurs when sound carries over a visual transition in a film. This type of editing provides a common transition in the continuity editing style because of the way in which it connects the mood, as suggested by the music, throughout multiple scenes. For example, music might continue through a scene change or throughout a montage sequence to tie the scenes together in a creative and thematic way. Another form of a sound bridge can help lead in or out of a scene, such as when dialogue or music occurs before or after the speaking character is seen by the audience. One of the most famous examples of a sound bridge is from The Graduate, where a sound bridge of dialogue is used between two scenes for humorous effect. The still on this screen is from such a moment. A voiceover is a sound device wherein one hears the voice of a character and/or narrator speaking, but the character in question is not speaking those words on screen. This is often used to reveal the thoughts of a character through first-person narration. Third-person narration is also a common use of voiceover to provide exposition. Films made of novels with first-person narration, like The Great Gatsby, often make use of voiceover to preserve important parts of the text and provide exposition. A sonic flashback describes the technique of using sound from earlier in the film during a later scene. One character may be present on the screen, but he or she is hearing a voice or action from a previous time in his or her head, often showing an important revelation or realization on their part. The climactic revelation at the end of The Sixth Sense, and see the still on this slide, uses sonic flashback to show the realizations occurring in the main character's head. Foley is the reproduction of everyday sound effects that are added to film, video, and other media in post-production to enhance audio quality. These reproduced sounds can be anything from the swishing of clothing and footsteps to squeaky doors and breaking glass. The best Foley art is so well integrated into a film that it goes unnoticed by the audience. Foley helps to create a sense of reality within a scene. Without these crucial background noises, movies feel unnaturally quiet and uncomfortable. The picture here shows the equipment used by Foley artists to create the various sounds needed in a scene, different surfaces on which to walk, and all sorts of other items that are used to recreate sound. If someone is walking on broken glass, the sound has to be created, like this. ADR is the process of re-recording dialogue by the original actor after the filming process to improve audio quality or reflect dialogue changes. It's also known as looping. ADR is also used to change original lines recorded on set to clarify context, improve diction or timing, or to replace an accented vocal performance. Noise from the set, equipment, traffic, wind, and the surrounding environment often results in unusable production sound. During post-production, a supervising sound editor, or ADR supervisor, reviews all of the dialogue in the film and decides which lines must be re-recorded. No matter how well the shots are taken, which camera angles are used, the sound editing of dialogue can make or break a film and an actor's career. A film score is original music written specifically to accompany a film. The majority of film scores have been orchestral and rooted in the Western classical tradition. The score is often recorded so that dramatic events in the music match dramatic events on screen. In early films, orchestral music is considered non-diegetic, and vocal music is considered diegetic. This began to change in the 1950s, and since then, many films make use of non-diegetic popular and contemporary songs with vocals. I'm sure that you are all familiar with the theme from the 1981 movie Chariots of Fire. This score is often played at sports events all over the world. Such is the power of a successful musical score that it lives on long after the movie has disappeared from our screens. While talking about sound in movies, it would be remiss not to pause a moment and remember some of the memorable songs that have won Oscars. How many of these do you remember? Definitely Let It Go from Frozen. Adele's Skyfall from the James Bond film of the same name. And who can forget Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On from Titanic? What's your favorite movie song? Compare your list with your parents and your grandparents. Make time to listen to this vast array of songs over the past decades. Ask yourself, what makes these songs so popular? What value do they add to the films? When analyzing scenes from your fourth genre movies, look out for natural sounds, sound effects that have been deliberately added to the film. And take note of the dialogue, the sound of the voices, the volume at which they speak, the accents of the characters. Listen for any voiceovers and ask yourself why this has been used. Listen carefully to any music that is used in the film. Is there a particular theme with a theme song? Have any other songs been adapted for the film in question? All of these work together to enhance your viewing experience. If you're interested in pursuing this line of study, I recommend that you watch the following war movies and pay particular attention to the sound design, as each of these won an Oscar for sound editing and/or sound design. Platoon, the best film winner at the 1986 Oscars. Saving Private Ryan, a depiction of the D-Day landings of World War II. The second scene in the movie lasts a full 24 minutes. It has little to no dialogue. It shows just the carnage on the beaches of Normandy. Army veterans rated it as the most accurate depiction of war that they had ever seen. And The Hurt Locker, which won the Oscar for Best Sound Editing in 2009, and American Sniper, the 2014 movie of the true story of a sniper's psychological journey through his various tours of duty in the so-called American War on Terror. This video series deals with the technical and more generic aspects of film study, so you'll be able to apply them to any of the films which you have selected to study in the fourth genre. Should you have any queries, please feel free to contact me using the email address that you see on the screen.